Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Monday and welcome to Norse Studies Week 18. This week we are delving into Chapter 3 of Germanic Heathenry, a practical guide by James Coulter. It focuses on the Liut, which I am probably mispronouncing, so if you know the proper pronunciation, please correct me in the comments. But the authors defined the Liut as an organized social unit, a formal collection of folk who are individually and mystically bound to one another and bound to a common good and weal that is firmly rooted and expressed by the communal spirit and enterprise. Gods give me strength. You see what I mean about its use of language. There's a reason why I keep bitching about it. If we want to have more straightforward terms, it's essentially the formation of a heathen society comprised of both kith and kin. One of the differences between kith and kin is that kinship is based upon relationships that are formed through blood, marriage, and adoption, but kith is created through friendship and loyalty. Now, from there, the author goes on for several rather lengthy paragraphs so that they can gripe about how many heathen organizations are formed and why they fall short of the author's ideal. And last time I looked, there is no magic formula to make a group work and endure. So I'm not going to be trifling with your intelligence or time by discussing the authors on that topic. Now, that being said, I will share what the author considered to be the necessary roles and positions for a functioning Liut, but I will be skipping almost all of the author's commentary because the writing in this section really tested my patience. So, the first position he mentions is the Hugari, which is essentially the keeper of the temple, frequently a position held by the person who founded the Liut, male or female. Frequently it happens to be a male. Then we have the Thalling, who's the protector of the Hugari, cultivator of the luck of the group, the only person who is allowed to interrupt the Hugari, and often a de facto second in command and someone who can recite the rules of the tribe at will. Then we have the Minnesengari, a memory singer. This person keeps track of the group's lore, history, ancestral deeds, folk heroes, gods, other spirits. This person might keep a written record, but they're required to have those details committed to memory, and some are even able to sing the lore of the group while accompanied by the harp. Then we have the Fraua, usually the wife of the Hogari, or is the highest ranking lady of the group. She's responsible for much of the hallowing, the healing, and administration. Then you have the Steward, who is either a placeholder for a Hugari that will be selected at a later date, or it's someone who attends to certain matters at the Hugari's behest. Sometimes the Steward is the Hugari's apprentice. Then we have the titles of Good Man and Good Wife, which refers to newcomers who are learning their path and are as yet untested and unproven. The last part of the chapter, Coulter discussed the implications of both geography and the atmosphere of the group. He argues that it's next to impossible for Liut to function in a meaningful way if people live too far apart and their lives are too disconnected. So he does advise creating groups of people who live near to each other and that they should meet regularly. And in an ideal world, I'm sure that's what would happen. But anyway, moving on. Next, he discusses that choosing a name for the Liut is part of setting the tone for the group. And he even goes so far as to declare that the name is a holy thing in and of itself. And lastly, he suggests the use of ritual clothing, whether that is a recreation of known historical costume or it's clothing that reflects the cultural spirits and motif of the group. So that really does it for Chapter 3. Very short video on this week. I'm just not going to get into all of the author's various soapboxes. His approach to how group formation should be even undertaken, I mean, it's formal to an extent that it almost feels a little bit too corporatized to me. I could be misinterpreting what he's saying. It might be my prejudice against his writing style that makes it come across colder and worse than it actually is, but you know. I will say this for his approach. I mean, it does allow for clear roles and responsibilities to be defined, but it feels a little bit too much focused on making sure that people have titles to stand upon. And it seems less about fostering community. And honestly, I think that community needs to come about more organically and in a more relaxed fashion. And in my opinion, which is all that it is. I do think that you need to have that organically grown sense of community before you start thinking about forming a liut. You need to have a core of people who have strong relationships and shared values before, deciding to take that further step of, let's make a point of getting together on our holy days. Let's do ritual together. And then even beyond that, spending other kinds of time with as a community. Now, I think down the road, after people do know each other, they formed a habit of working with one another, and they actually have a functioning dynamic. I think that's a better time to start thinking about how you might formalize a group, create structure, and seek legal recognition and all the other things. So that's my 2 cents. I'm not going to pretend I don't feel a bit cross about this chapter. I do. I have doubts that the author and I are ever going to sit down over a cup of tea and see eye to eye about things. But we will carry on. Next week, we'll be looking at the next chapter, chapter 4, which is the nature of thou and law of the good folk. So we'll see what we come up with that. So come back next week for more of the torture or more of the information, depending on how you look at it. In the meantime, please come visit me at Blackbird's Brew. There's a link to join our Gilded group in the description box below. And of course, if you haven't noticed already, I have created a Subscribe Star account to start gaining a little bit of support for this channel so that the tools of the trade can be very gradually upgraded, and so that quality of the videos can gradually go up. So if you're in a position to be of help, please do so. But that will do it for now, and I will see you next time. Bye.